But I think really finding my voice in the world is being unapologetically myself. I don't code switch anymore in any form. I don't code switch out of any part of my identity at any time. I'm always Black. I'm always a mom. I'm always pretty politically left with people I love who are Black and Indigenous and Latino and LGBTQ. And I'm always that.
Hello, and welcome to At the Podium with me, Patrick Huey. At the Podium is a multimedia platform that brings together people from a diverse background of lives, careers, and experiences who all share one thing in common. They have stepped fully into the transformative power of finding and raising their voices to make an impact on the world we live in today. At the Podium holds a space for everyone to share their stories, to be heard, and to bring us inspiration. Today, I'm thrilled to share the podium with Attica Locke. Attica Locke is a New York Times best-selling author of 5 novels: Heaven My Home, sequel to the Edgar Award-winning Bluebird, Pleasantville, winner of the Harper Lee Prize for Legal Fiction, and long-listed for the Bailey's Prize for Women's Fiction, The Cutting Season, winner of the Ernest Gaines Award for Literary Excellence, and her debut novel, Black Water Rising, which was nominated for an Edgar Award, an NAACP Image Award, as well as Los Angeles Times Book Prize, and was shortlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction. A former fellow at the Sundance Institute's Feature Filmmakers Lab, Locke is also a screenwriter and TV producer, with credits that include Empire, When They See Us, and the Emmy-nominated Little Fires Everywhere, for which she won an NAACP Image Award for writing and television. She most recently co-created and executive produced an adaptation of her sister Timby Locke's memoir, From Scratch, a memoir of love, Sicily, and finding home, for Netflix. A native of Houston, Texas, Attica lives in Los Angeles, California, with her husband and her daughter. Before we hear from Attica, I want to invite you to share at the podium with the people in your lives. If you find our conversation today helpful, and I hope that you will, take a screenshot and share on your Instagram and tag at the podium _Patrick Huey. Or if you're on LinkedIn or Facebook, share our links there. Your shares, likes, and 5-star written reviews help grow our audience and move us up the charts. I'm grateful for your support in this capacity. Okay, Attica, welcome to At the Podium.
Thank you. I'm honored. I'm flattered. I'm proud of this mission. So I'm happy to be here.
I am so happy that you're here. When I first started this podcast, I knew that you were one of the voices that the world needed to hear, because you have such a unique voice. And I don't know if you even remember this conversation we had. It must have been over 20 years ago when I had first moved to Los Angeles. And I think we showed up in LA around the same time, in that same time frame. And we were talking one day. You were pursuing your career at that time as a television writer, and I was pursuing my career as an actor. And I think we were sort of commiserating over just the difficulty of finding one's way through Hollywood. And you said to me, sometimes the victory is just in showing up. And that has become a mantra that I've lived my life by, because I think you really spoke truth in that moment.
It's funny because I still tell myself that, and I didn't remember saying that to you. But I'm trying to write a book right now, and I am somebody who is full of neuroses about all the things that are wrong with it. And what I tell myself is just show up. It's in the showing up.
Yeah.
I don't really know where this is going, but it won't go anywhere if I don't show up.
You have to show up. And I think, we live in a time when people just don't show up. We live in a time when people step away. You look at people, the way people resign from jobs right now, the way people have just sort of checked out of being involved socially and politically. So that showing up becomes a really important act of courage that I think we need right now.
It's about also being kind of in contract with yourself, because it's about, here's what I will say to the people who are checking out. I hear you and I see you and I understand you, because right now is wild. We are being bombarded in a way that no human brain has been asked to process information ever in the history of humanity. Between the news that we're taking in, between the pandemic, the political unrest, war, we've had pieces of those at one time. We never had them all happening at once. And wanting to get under the covers, I get that and I understand that. And I understand that impulse, but you have to kind of find a way to push through that. And some of it is just asking yourself to show up for yourself, because your ability to then be additive to the lives of others starts with you being able to show up for yourself. So this is an interesting time to be alive.
It really is. I don't think we could have ever contemplated what we're facing today. I actually dipped my toe yesterday, and I've been avoiding news for the past few months because I need to still get through my day. But I dipped my toe in to the January 6th hearings that were going on. And I spent about an hour with that process. And it literally it made me sort of have to recommit to showing up in a way that I think can be scary, in a way that can be uncomfortable. But I think we have to, even if it's from having knowledge about what's happening in the world and understanding what that really was, I think it's important that we show up.
Well, it's interesting. What I hear in what you said is you found a coping skill, which is I don't always check in with that because I can't function. And I've talked to other people who have come up with ways to process. So rather than having Twitter up all day long or looking at their phone, they have made a pledge with themselves that for them, it's at the very end of the day or at the very beginning of the day. And I have a friend who says she can't take it in during the day. She certainly can't take it in before she goes to sleep. But in the morning, when things are still, that's when she chooses to consume news and process it within herself. And so I think coming up with things like that are great coping skills to process the times that we're in. Because I come back to physiologically and neurologically, we're not really supposed to be able to take in what is happening on our block in Ukraine, in Israel, in DC, all at the same time. So I applaud you for finding a way to know I need to take that in bites and in a way that feels safe and comfortable for me so that I can function in the rest of my life.
I think that's true. I think showing up isn't just giving away your boundaries and your agencies. It's being very selective in what you choose to give your energy to. And I've been really in this space in my life right now, I would say over the last year, where I've really been interested in establishing boundaries. And I think it's a skill that you have to learn. And I think that's part of the showing up process, is showing up in the way that makes sense for your life, in the given circumstances of your life at any particular time.
I agree completely.
Attica, I was doing a little research on you before this conversation today, and I found this amazing interview with you that you did in 2015 for NPR. And I love the quote because it really speaks to this season that we're in for this particular show. And the interviewer was asking you about Pleasantville, one of the novels that you've written, one of the 5 novels that you've written. And he asked you this amazing question. He says, do you have to check yourself when you're writing Black characters? Now, remember, this is in 2015. This is in the glow of the Obama administration and sort of the huge social gains that we were making at that time. And what was to follow wasn't really even on the horizon at this point. And I loved your response, and I'm going to read your response directly. What you said to that question was, that voice is always there, but I think it is art to push that voice out. What has been extraordinary about the experience of Empire, which was the show you were writing on at that time, is that I think that Black people have been conditioned for so long to only look at the level of representation. Are we visible? That there was an inordinate pressure that visibility is positive. I hope that we're getting closer to Black people being able to engage their image of themselves as art, which means complication, which means you do some good stuff and you do some bad stuff, because that is what it means to be human. You need the variety. We exist in the middle. We're not demons or angels. We're human beings. And so that is what needs to be reflected in the art of our nation. Where do you stand on that?
My word. My immediate reaction to hearing that is a kind of sadness, because it was spoken within the safety of exactly what you were talking about, which was the Obama administration. And in our lives, we are both people who were born on the other side of the civil rights movement, where there was the narrative of the country is through blood and sweat, we're gonna get there. Yeah. And it was going kind of like this. It was an ascent, and people paid with their lives, and it was a struggle, but you got the sense that we were going in an upward direction, which meant there was this safety to begin to see Black folks in art with this kind of complication. I don't back off of that. I still think it matters. I think the danger now is that we're in a time period where sometimes our humanity, I've witnessed it be used against us. Not only things like seeing Black people do bad things or to have a criminal impulse, which every other race under the sun also has. I've also seen our grace be used against us. When I wrote my last book, Heaven, My Home, which had a big theme about forgiveness and whether or not Black folks could afford forgiveness. I had seen the gentleman who was murdered in Dallas by the cop who walked into the wrong apartment.
Yes.
And his brother got on the stand and wept and said, I forgive you. And the danger is that is our humanity. Because I actually believe the Black folks are some of the most forgiving people on planet Earth. We are some of the most gracious people on planet Earth. And yet the fear is that if you keep offering that up on a platter, where is the incentive for people to begin to keep checking their own behavior and course correcting their bad behavior? And so when I hear that quote, I hear it being spoken in a different America. And so I feel a kind of sadness about where we are. And I hear you about the January 6th hearings. There was one of them where I tried to talk to my husband about it afterwards, and I cried. I'm not the only one. I've just never seen anything like this in my life. And I'm Black. I'm a Black American saying, I ain't never seen anything like this in my life. Right. I have never seen, it hurts so much that the need to maintain a sense of white power is so strong that you literally will obliterate the democracy. You will literally undo it because you so badly want to be better than someone else. It's just sad. It's just sad.
You said something that I want to sort of dive into a little deeper about the grace of what is required when you forgive and when you move forward. And this theme has come up several times in the interviews that we've shot for season 2. This idea of that you don't meet inequity, you don't meet resistance with resistance, you meet that with love. And I understand that in the poetic sense of what that means. And I agree with it in many ways. I think Martin Luther King was right that you want to address these issues that are so complicated and so within the bone marrow of what it means to be an American or human. But I wonder if we're in a time when that's even possible, because the vitriol that's reserved for people who are without a certain sort of demographic and who are not part of a certain race or a certain gender is so powerful right now that it's literally changing the inner workings of what it means to be American, what it means to be human. So I question if we're in a time where love can conquer all.
Oh, these are the questions of our time. These are the questions of our time. I don't know, Patrick. I don't know. What I do think is I actually don't think there are as many hateful, crazy people as the media makes us think there are. And I wish we would starve them of oxygen. I know that we have to know that these people are out there. And so certainly we, should cover them in the news. But I feel like the coverage is outsized to the actual numbers. I wish we could see more of the fact that there are people who, I think the number of people who truly believe that Trump was sent down from Jesus and he won the election and JFK is a cabinet in the next life or whatever. It's not that many of them people. We just see it a lot because it's wild. It's mildly entertaining to look at it. How's that person that crazy?
Right.
But there are more people who are reachable than I think gets shown in the news. Now, do these people have issues? Do people need to look at themselves and ask, why did I vote for Trump in 2016? Why was I okay with some of the stuff that he was saying if it meant I was going to get a tax break or it meant whatever about the economy? Why was I okay with that? If you're even consciously asking them the question, you're reachable. Now, is it going to be a lot of work? Yeah, but that's a human being I can reach who can ask the question. Do I want to do that work every day? No. Might I end up at a dinner party with you and we talk and something shifts? Yeah, maybe. Maybe on that particular day, I have the energy to begin to engage with you about the why of it, to, if I feel like it, I'm in the mood that day, to educate, to shift. And I just think there are many more, numerically, I think there are many more people like that. And I wish more of the conversation lived in the middle. And I'm not one of these, I'm not a both sides or God, no. And I'm not a middle of the road. I'm a leftist, everything, because to me, what the left represents is human rights. But there are a lot of people who just been asleep and you saw them wake up during the everything that happened after George Floyd. But you have to keep poking at some of those folks and keep kind of checking in with them, because we've been, since George Floyd, I mean, how many other 800 things have happened that are just so overwhelming that you just erase? I can't worry about that no more. But people's, I mean, here's the thing: love, and nonviolence are the only sustaining principles of life. Period. So, as much as I feel sometimes like I want to shut it out and I don't want to deal with people, and I don't know if we can love our way out of this, it actually is kind of the only way we're going to get through it, whether it's comfortable or not. And I don't think we're as bad off as we think we are, because I do think that because otherwise he would have pulled it off on January 6th.
Right.
And he didn't. I'm splitting hairs here, but just trying to make myself feel better that he didn't pull it off. But I've never been more scared, but I don't have another answer other than having hope, or else I'm done. That otherwise, bye, Patrick, I'm out. Like, I'm out with the world. I'm done with the world. Like, so I'm not done with the world. I'm not done with people. So what can I do but engage in aggressive self-care and have some faith in humanity?
Well, Attica, you and I grew up in Texas. So we lived in a place of hope, I think, because I'm sure we went to school with people. And when you're that age, you're not maybe as politically aware as you become when you're older. But, we went to school with people who had pretty far right opinions and views of things.
There were Confederate flags in the school parking lot, in the trucks.
Right. But that did not impact our ability to coexist with them. Were we going to lunch every day? No. But there wasn't this schism that we have now. And I think maybe some of the hope that you feel, and that I want to feel deep inside, and I think I do feel it, is that we've lived in a context where people of if you think about our high school, it was incredibly ethnically diverse and socially diverse. And we had incredibly far right leaning people and far left as you can be when you're 16 years old. And we somehow managed to build an environment that we could all coexist together in. So I think it's possible.
I think it's possible. I think we're going to get there. I mean, I think the far right of our time period is reasonable. You were still allowed to exist. I mean, we're now in a place where just the fundamental essence of who people are, we're talking about not protecting that anymore. And so that's more dangerous. But I still think it's a numbers game that they're fudging on the other side. They wouldn't be trying to redistrict stuff like this if they had the numbers to pull off their quote unquote belief system. They're cheating on that side. There are more Americans, in my opinion, who certainly believe in things like abortion rights, believe in LGBTQ rights, that got some racist blind spots for sure, but are not fundamentally deeply hateful people.
I agree with you on that. I think there is a benefit in creating hysteria because it helps drive ratings. It makes people in a way feel good. That if we're just getting it out there and we're just, it's somehow going to change, or we're feeling good about ourselves because we've raised the issue, we've highlighted the issue.
Yeah.
But it's the Anne Frank in us that people are still good at heart.
You know what though? I have heard that there are some scholars who believe she never actually said that.
Interesting.
Wait a minute, hold on. No. She said that. Sorry, I'm taking it back. Her father, him saying that she puts me to shame. There are scholars because that's in the play, that maybe that was not really his sentiment. Anyway, there was some, let me not speak out of turn because I may not know what I'm talking about. But the reason why that lands with me is that I feel like I live between those two poles of thought. I live between, in spite of everything, I still believe people are good at heart, and she puts me to shame. I live between those two poles where I swing between feeling like there's a fundamental decency and also, no, that's dangerous. That's a dangerous way to think. That's going to get you killed.
Well, because George Floyd.
Yeah. I mean, I also remember, yes. And I remember when Trump was elected, speaking of NPR interview, I was on NPR the morning after. And I remember driving home from the Culver City offices, because it was early where I was. And I just thought, this guy, he's going to get us all killed. And it was hyperbole. And yet every day of his presidency seemed to tiptoe us closer to so much obliteration. Much obliteration. It's scary.
Attica, we grew up in Texas, and in your writing, Texas is a huge, we have to pause, I'm sorry.
You okay, Patrick?
It's a tough.
I love you. It is a very tough time to be alive.
Oh, I didn't know we were going to go there.
I understand. We're trying to make it. Sending you so much love.
You too.
Thank you.
Ugh. Okay. Red eyes. Life is real.
We just go keep it real. We just gonna keep it real.
Keeping it real. Oh, okay.
Was it between, is it like 30 years of friendship? Oh my God. A long time. Yeah. All right.
I'm good. Are you good, Attica?
I'm good. I'm all good.
Okay. I'm gonna go to a 2 shot so it won't be so close on my face. Hang on a second. Okay, Attica, speaking of Texas, you and I are from Texas. We grew up in Texas. And in your writing, which we are talking about today, Texas is such a large character within the stories that you create. It almost personifies life, a view of life within all the novels that you've written, which are quite wonderful. And I wonder why that exists within your book so much. Why that choice to really give Texas that kind of three-dimensionality of almost another character within the book?
I think it's me trying to work out my unbridled affection for a complicated place.
Mm.
Um, it was somewhere in my 30s where I just started asking myself why I loved it like I do when it does not always love us back, which is also analogous to what it is to be any marginalized person in America. But I love Texas to my core. I love it to my core. And I know it to be better than its worst impulses. And I think the things that I love about Texas are the warmth of its people. I love its kind of front porch philosophical way of looking at the world. I love its humor. I love the food. I love the ballsiness of it. I love the ballsiness of the people. And it took me a long time to begin to appreciate how those qualities got in me through my family. And I am a part of a group of Black Southerners that never left the South. So anyway, I wanted to express what was great about it. What I wanted to hold the contradiction and invite people to hold the contradiction. Um, in fact, I'm writing this book now, and I wrote a line that Texas, what did I say, could be brutal but never rude.
Which
And
is so accurate.
which is what it is. And so it's just a contradiction. And the fact is, most of life is a contradiction. And the ability to hold contradictions is a sign of wisdom. I think it can fundamentally make people happier if you're not trying to force your perception of something to be one thing or the other, which never feels true. And so you feel agitated all the time. If I tried to pretend that everything about my home state was great, that would be a kind of a lie, and it wouldn't really feel good. If I tried to only talk about everything I hated about Texas, that wouldn't feel true either. Learning how to sit in the tension of the contradiction there's a kind of odd peace in that. And it's also, I find that to be true about a lot of things in life, that when I'm able to hold that something is both this and that, and accept that in a grown-up way, I feel more peace internally. But I just wanted to write about Texas in that way. I wanted it to have a place in literature that wasn't through a white male lens. I wanted it to, because we've had, and I like Larry McMurtry, and I like the Old West and Big Sky Country, but I'm from East Texas. I'm from the Piney Woods, and I'm Black, and I'm a woman, and my lens on it is different. And I have a corner of it that's mine and that belongs to my culture. And I just wanted that written down. I just wanted it written down.
I love that you mentioned that, because I think what's really great about your work, you write in the suspense thriller genre of writing, but it's so much more, because you do go into the complexities of that. It's not just like, a guy in a fedora and a smoky alley and a cigarette and a pretty girl who shows up and they solve the murder or they solve the mystery. But there is a complexity to the writing, which I think is part of the reason why you've had such critical acclaim, is because you ask the reader to hold complex thoughts. I think that's part of the power of what your writing does.
And thank you. Thank you. And I'm also remembering you've been one of my biggest champions from like ever. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And a lot of it helps me work stuff out, that it helps me grow up in a way. I think the act of me writing complex thoughts or complex stories helps me learn to hold complexity as an adult. And I think it's actually helped me grow up.
I'm a huge Agatha Christie fan, so I feel like I'm built for suspense. Did you ever read Agatha Christie, or she didn't
No,
no impact?
no, not really. I mean, the first mystery book I read ever was as it's a kid's book. It's called The Westing Game. And I fell in love. I was just like, oh my God, this is so exciting. But then I never went on a big run of reading mysteries. And I don't know how I've kind of found myself here, even though now I read more of them than I ever did before I started writing them. I just am fascinated by, I'm drawn to legal things, I'm drawn to crime, I'm drawn to the questions that crime asks of us, or things it asks us to think about. I have this theory that crime is about scarcity and the
Ooh,
illusion of scarcity.
okay.
There's
Okay.
not enough. There's not enough land. There's not enough money. There's not enough food. There's not enough love. And the illusion that makes people act out. And I'm gonna get mine. I'm gonna fight for this land. I'm gonna fight for that woman. I'm gonna get this money because there's not enough when there actually is. So I'm curious to explore that kind of psychology in writing stories that have crimes at the center. And sometimes they're moral crimes, they're political crimes, they're love crimes. And I just think that exploring that, I hope lays bare the kind of fallacy in thinking and the danger in thinking that there isn't enough, when actually the world is quite abundant. If we share, the world is quite abundant.
It's interesting hearing your take on mystery writing and sort of your approach to mystery writing, and maybe part of your ability to sort of break open the lexicon around mysteries and suspense and thrillers is that you weren't ensconced in it. So you were able to sort of think about it in a different kind of way.
Maybe I never thought of it that way, but that actually may bear out. Yeah. I
Um,
mean, I will say this though. I
mm.
love thrillers, like movie thrillers. And I also watch every Dateline, every Snapped. I put them in the trunk of my car when we got into fight. I mean, I watch all that kind of stuff too. And I'm watching it for the same reasons. Why? Why would you do that? I'm trying to understand why. And then why would you think you would get away with it?
Right.
I'm just, and some of it, I think there's a reason why women love this genre so much, because I think we walk through the world feeling vulnerable 90% of the time. And I think there's this kind of fantasy that if you study people who behave badly, you'll be able to spot them in the wild. Like I can see you in line at Walgreens, like, oh, I don't need to be next to you. Or at work, we're not gonna hang out. Like that if you study them a lot, you can realize the qualities of people who are damaged in some way or are dangerous in some way. So anyway, I like the genre very much, but I did not read a ton of it before I started writing it.
That's so interesting. Attica, I'm curious, in your writing, where does the line between imagination and autobiography sit for you? And I ask this because I think with all art and creation, there can exist an underlying assumption that the artist creates from her lived experience. Is the creation process for you broader than just the sort of particulars of your life growing up in Texas? And
Um,
you know,
it's not always literally autobiographical, but I'm always in there because there's usually something I'm trying to work out that I don't even realize what I'm trying to work out when I started, that my unconscious is doing a lot of the work. So Blackwater Rising, my first book, I thought, oh, I'm gonna write a legal thriller. I'm gonna write a slick legal thriller. And I started with an incident that had actually happened. That book opens on a boat on Buffalo Bayou, and there's a party going on, and then people hear a woman crying for help, and there's a debate about what to do. And that actually happened. There was my stepmother's birthday. My dad didn't have a ton of money at the time, and so knew a dude who knew somebody who had a boat, and we brought plates of barbecue and a boom box and had like a little party. And at some point we got away from downtown Houston and deep into Fifth Ward, which is a neighborhood that's always kind of had some challenges. Or rather, let me say that on the other side of integration, it's had some challenges,
mm,
as it has also been ignored by the city in some ways.
Yep.
So there can be a lot of crime there. And we hear a woman screaming for help, a woman, and then we heard gunshots, and there was a debate about what to do. And what I remembered about it so intensely was my father and his best friend got into a debate, an almost fight, I want to say. And I'd never seen two grown-up people have a philosophical argument that deep, because my dad and his best friend, who were in the civil rights movement together, and the character Jay Porter, we find out in the book, is a survivor of, a soldier of, had been involved in the civil rights movement. So my dad and his best friend, who married, he was a minister. He's been a common minister since then, and married me and my sister. I mean, like, married us at our wedding. Married to me, and he was the officiant at both of our weddings. And so he was a minister saying, we have a moral obligation to stop this boat and go save that woman. My father, who after the movement went on to become a criminal defense attorney, said, no, we don't, because my child is on this boat. My wife is on this boat. I don't know who that is and what's going on, but I'm not putting everybody at risk to save that person. We will call the police. And everybody was right. Everybody was valid in their approach. And we never did anything other than call the police. But over the years, it bothered my dad. He would bring it up, like going on, you take those walks after Thanksgiving dinner with the family, and he would just bring that story up. I wonder what happened. We never knew what happened there. And my imagination ran with that. But what was underneath it is I was asking questions about the movement. I was asking questions about being that child raised by people who had been through the civil rights movement, who had at 19 and 20, 21, had seen a lot, who had marched, who had lost people, who had seen state-sanctioned violence, and who were very quiet about it. And they didn't talk a lot about it. And I think I wrote that book to get under it and see what was going on for them psychologically. With the cutting season, I went to a wedding. I went to a wedding on a plantation. And I was like, what is this? This is crazy. And so even though I made up everything in it, it was coming from me trying to understand, wait, what are we doing with our history? And of course, it was written after, and it takes place, because I literally put a date stamp on it, in 2009. So it's written after Obama. So a lot of it is my hope about his election. Pleasantville, my dad ran for mayor. Like everything along the way, there's something in it. And so even when things aren't literally me, I would say the things that are closest to me autobiographically is that Darren Matthews, who's the character in the last two books that I've written, he comes from like a long line of Texans that goes back to slavery, and they've never left. And, he comes from corn and cotton farmers, and that's kind of like my family. But the rest is all invented, except me trying to work out stuff within me that I sometimes don't even know I'm doing when I'm writing it. It's later that I'll be like, oh my God, oh, that's what that was about.
You mentioned your father and your mother and your stepmother, and you come from a family, as you articulated, of people who were very active in the civil rights movement. Your dad went on to have a fabulous career as an attorney, ran for mayor, a great campaign in Houston. Your mom started her own business in the 1980s in Texas, when a lot of people weren't doing that, especially Black women. And I wonder where those influences sit within you, and how is that where the genesis of Attica Locke, the writer, the television producer, the screenwriter, were born?
Yes, very much so. One, because they taught me to be very awake to the world. We certainly discussed current events at the dinner table. I absorbed their worldview about politics. And because one was a business person and one was an attorney, I understood how certain systems worked at a young age. Like I understood how, and I don't mean just like business, how business works from an accounting point of view, but I understood what it was to start a minority business and what it meant to get minority business contracts from the government. Why did they have to have those? Oh, because of history of trying to find parity for minority businesses. So I learned about things like that because it was being discussed in the house. With my dad, I learned about the law. I learned about rules of law and governing. And so a lot of my work centers around law. It centers around business and corporations and their sometimes dastardly deeds. There's usually in my books a front-facing crime at the street level that's masking something bigger, that usually has political or corporate implications. And so I definitely see my parents in that.
Why writing? You were quite the actress, which
Oh no, I lost it all. Why writing? I literally can't do anything else. I have no other skill set. I can't do any. I'm trying to think of anything else I could do and make a living at it, other than running my mouth. If there were a job, and I have said before, if I could be a lawyer without taking the bar or going to law school, I would do it. If it was just the part where you talk, I would love to be a lawyer. If I could just get up and run my mouth, that sounds great. But I don't know how to do anything else. I do think Timby and I both talked about this binary thinking we had where, oh, well, Attica's the writer and Timby's the actor. And that Timby had to, when Timby wrote her book, she had to get past the idea that Attica writes. I don't write, Attica writes. And I helped her get over it by saying, you have to write a book. You have to write this book. But all of the acting thing, it just left me. I mean, the only thing I have left is a comfort being in front of people. I have a comfort speaking extemporaneously, being improvisational, but I cannot act anymore. I'm not even sure I ever did. Like, it feels like it was a memory from some other time. And the writing has always been with me. It's always been going back to ideas of self-care and making a contract with yourself. Writing is a way that I get to spend time inside my own mind. And it's only as I've gotten older that I'm looking at that critically. It happened impulsively as a child. I impulsively would sit down in a room, be by myself and write, get my dad's typewriter, and make up a story. Now I'm beginning to understand, now that I hold different things in my life, that I do TV work, which is so highly collaborative, and I write novels, which is just so solo. I'm beginning to realize the privilege of being a writer is the privilege of being able to spend time with myself. And it's taken me a while to learn to realize, because I mean, I've had a lot of therapy and I've had a lot of just self-esteem issues to work on my entire life. But now I can kind of see that to write, you have to kind of like yourself a little bit because you're just spending time with yourself. Yeah. So you're just like we said, you're just showing up, but you're showing up to just hang out with Attica. So in some ways, even though I have an internal critic that likes to tell me this isn't good and you're not that great and you don't, I say all these things, I can't really think them because I keep showing up for myself. So that tells me that there's a gap between your internal voice and your actual actions, and your actions are the things you should trust more than what you're saying to yourself. Like, I've caught myself just saying things that I don't mean because it's rote. Like, oh my God, I'm just so tired. And sometimes I'm actually tired. Sometimes I'm not. I'm just saying it because I say it all the time. When I'm actually walking around the house whistling, I actually am feeling more joy than I'm actually admitting to myself. So that's another thing where I think that comes with age, is learning how to divorce these habits of being from what's the actual lived truth. Ooh. That I actually think, which this is in theme with what we're saying about the things we say about our country, so to speak. It's terrible, but we're all crying like this because we fucking care. Yeah. We're crying like this because there's so much love, and we're not the only ones. Like, so there are just more of us. There are more of us that believe there's a way out of where we are than there are of the people who are trying to obliterate democracy. Yeah. We're in a dangerous place because there are the cynics who, a lot of them are engaging in cosplay. But it is important, I think, to remember that there are more folks out there who are reasonable and reachable. And there are some who know they could do better and should do better. And those are the people that you can reach. I have had, I think everybody probably has, since the reckoning of the murder of George Floyd and everything that came after it, experiences with white folks where real teaching moments have happened.
Yeah.
And I think it matters. I think it matters. And I think at least the degree to which we're able to call things what they are, which didn't exist. I got my hand slapped on NPR when I said, people who voted for Trump are racist the morning after the election. They were like, be careful, because I think a lot of Trump supporters wouldn't see themselves this way. And now, baby, we got the Oath Keepers in the White House. We're all here. So hello. But I'm happy at least that the sickness is bubbling up to the surface of the skin, because you can't treat what you won't call, what you can't see or name. You can't treat it. So I'm gonna have hope, because what else, Patrick? I don't want to be done. So I just gotta have hope.
Yeah, we have to have hope. We have to have hope. You said so much that's so powerful. And I think there is a cynicism that has taken root, that we make decisions and choices not out of a place of truth, but out of a place of cynicism and a place of, well, what can I get from this? And how can I benefit? And I think, only the historians can tell us the truth behind this, because they will see it. But, perhaps what we're living through now is a reaction to what happened to George Floyd. The other side of that, those protests of that summer of 2020, and the sort of upswell of, it's all a continuum. Me Too, George Floyd, Black Lives Matter, trans rights, gay rights. It's all a continuum. These things do not exist separate. So perhaps we are in a moment where what we're living through is the reaction to that, to that epoch. But that as we move forward, I'm going to get the quote wrong, but the universe bends towards justice. And we have to believe that. Attica, this season is about people who have found their voice or are finding their voice. And I wonder what that means for you if you have found your voice, and what you want to say if you have found it.
Oh my word. I think so. I hope so. And I think what finding my voice to me means, there's my voice on the page. Certainly there's which is so esoteric and hard to explain, but it's just me. It's just me. But I think really finding my voice in the world is being unapologetically myself. I don't code switch anymore in any form. I don't code switch out of any part of my identity at any time. I'm always Black. I'm always a mom. I'm always pretty politically left with people I love who are Black and Indigenous and Latino and LGBTQ. And I'm always that. I'm always short. I'm always a wife. I'm always somebody's sister. I'm always mouthy. I'm just all of these things. And I'm beginning to understand that I like these things about myself, even though there's sometimes that internal voice that wants to criticize. I'm realizing that voice just like to be talking, but it's not always the truth. And I'm happy to feel comfortable in any room I walk into, because I don't have to don a persona anymore. And a lot of that is the grace of age. It's so funny. Something crossed my mind the other day and it freaked me out that I thought this. I was thinking about somebody I know who's 22, and it just went over my mind. I went, no, I don't want to ever do it. No, I wouldn't want to start any of that again. And I was like, what am I saying? Wouldn't I want more life? But I was driving thinking, I don't really want to go back to 22. It is a privilege to age. It's a privilege to age. And so I think finding my voice is to be unapologetically myself, and to the degree that I understand that it has power, or at least volume, to use it to illuminate the things that I care about. And the thing that I most care about on planet Earth is kindness, 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 and recognizing people's humanity. I've always told my daughter since she was 3 that the number one thing I want her to be in this world is kind. The rest of it, I don't know that I really care, but I want to raise a kind human being. And so that's my voice. My voice is to speak up for people, with people, beside people. Yeah, to speak up.
Attica, thank you so much for your time today.
Patrick, this was fun.
I loved
Oh
it.
my God, how do we get from the back of the Toyota Celica to here?
Right here, the
Right
Toyota
here.
Celica that we left the keys in so that someone could steal it.
This is for people listening. It was my sister's first car, and my dad got it from a client who couldn't pay him. So the client just gave him this old ass 73 Celica that barely worked. And Timby drove me and Patrick to high school every day. And I was in the back of that Celica, and we were bopping the music, Salt and Pepper.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
Attica, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And to those of you who are watching or listening, remember, we all have a voice. Use yours wisely. Bye, everyone. Thank you, Attica.
Thank you, Patrick.